Africa has got to be free.
In 1960, South Africa was a nation stratified by law. The backbone of the apartheid system was the Passed Law Act, legislation that restricted the movement of black South Africans. Every black male over the age of 16 was required by law to carry a reference book, known colloquially as the Dompas, at all times. Failure to produce this document on demand by police meant immediate arrest. In the year 1959 alone, over 30,000 people were prosecuted for past law offences in the Vereeniging region alone. For the residents of Sharpville, a township created to house workers for the nearby factories, this was a daily humiliation they could no longer endure.
The solution to your problems can be found in your story. Your story is very important, but if it's not your story, it can be offensive. However, if it's your story, it has to motivate you to think otherwise. In other words, history is very important. It can repeat itself. If you are not careful, we may not even make proper decisions, because history should motivate us, encourage us to make proper decisions. So some people may keep on asking, why are we dwelling so much upon history? It's because history is important. And again, we haven't gotten the justice which our people fought for. So I can say I'm proud of those heroes of Sharpville Massacre, because when you talk about these heroes, we are not only talking about those that are famous, but we are also talking about those who sacrificed with their bodies as bulletproofs, and as a result, they had to perish or they had to die in a battlefield. Some of them got injured. Some of them had to flee to other countries as well. So I can say I'm proud. But I know that right now, as we speak, there are people who are carrying a Dompas was not necessarily that bad. So I can say it's an insult to the people of Sharpville, to those victims, as well as their descendants. However, here is the thing. I understand that most of the people who are saying this, they are fed up with African National Congress government. So they want to replace ANC government with the apartheid system. They try by all means to justify the apartheid system. And some of these people is because they want favors from the gurus of the apartheid system, because the gurus of the apartheid system, they are still in control. They are still in charge of everything. In other words, they are still in control of most of the things, especially when it comes to economy. So that is why we have a lot of people whom we can call sellouts, because you sell out because your people don't have money. Your people cannot give you what the gurus of colonialism and apartheid system can give to you. So that's a sign that we are still under the serious punishment. I had an opportunity to be in Sharpville. So this incident took place in Sharpville, 21 March 1960. So our people were fed up. They were like, you know what? Enough is enough. They took it to the streets. They said, you know what? We have to fight. In other words, we have to die trying. Unlike our generation is manipulated to the core. These are the people who want to emulate Western lifestyle. They're not proud of themselves. So that is why some of them are like, you know what? We have to bring back the apartheid system. It was better. But here is the thing. Again, I can say it's an insult to the people of Sharpville, to those victims and their descendants as well. As I've said, that I had an opportunity to be in Sharpville. I stayed there for a couple of years, and I had an opportunity to compile a certain information. I had to, for an example, connect with certain elders who were well versed when it comes to the history of of Sharpville. So I learned a lot. I visited their museum many times. So I've learned a lot when it comes to the history of Sharpville. So I can say those people were really, really brave, because that's how it works. It has to begin with one individual to say, you know what, we are fed up. Just imagine, people are coming into your own place. They want to dictate how you should do things. They want to tell you that you have to carry a dumb bus to prove that you belong in this country or you belong in this land. Just imagine, that's how they divided Africa. And most of the Africans are still proud even today about the legacy of colonialism. And that's bad.
By early 1960, the resistance was fracturing. The African National Congress, or ANC, had been campaigning against the pass laws, but a breakaway group, the Pan-Africanist Congress, led by Robert Sobukwe, proposed a radical new strategy. They called for a positive, non-violent campaign of civil disobedience. The plan was simple but dangerous. Leave your pass at home, march to the local police station, surrender yourself for arrest for not carrying the document. Sobukwe vowed that the jails would be filled until the system collapsed under its own weight. The date was set for Monday, the 21st of March, 1960. Dawn broke over Sharpville on a chilly autumn morning. Robert Sobukwe had ensured the protest was disciplined. He instructed protesters to remain non-violent, to not be provoked, and to present no weapons. By mid-morning, the atmosphere was described by observers as festive. An estimated crowd of 5,000 to 7,000 people marched toward the Sharpville police station. They were singing freedom songs and chanting slogans. They expected to be arrested. They expected a confrontation. But they did not expect a massacre. Inside the Sharpville police station, the mood was starkly different. There were only about 75 police officers on duty, facing a massive crowd. They felt outnumbered and threatened.
If you go to Sharpville, many people in Sharpville, they cannot complete their story without talking about PAC. It's because at that time, African National Congress was very, very passive. So they needed something active to activate the confidence of the people. And that's how PAC was formed. That's how PAC was formed, and they fought against the system. And they were very deliberate when it comes to fighting against the system. That is why a lot of people took it to the streets, and some of the people perished as a result. Because just imagine, you go to the store, you have to carry a dumbass. You go to work, you have to carry a dumbass. You go everywhere, you have to carry this dumbass. You cannot compare a dumbass with a driver's license, because, in other words, if you have a driver's license, you can choose, you can decide to leave it at home. If you're not driving, you are free, but not with dumbass. With dumbass, you had to carry it wherever you went to. Just imagine, in your own land, in your own place, people can just come and dictate. And the reason many people want us to ignore this history is because they want to continue promoting the system. And this system, as long as we allow the system to be there, it will always crush our minds, because the main objective of the system is to deal with the mind. That is why when you check the minds of our people, is West. Not only in South Africa, Africa in general. Everything is their mind is Western. It's just that their physical appearance can still confirm that they are Africans. But when it comes to their minds, they are completely different. So we cannot say that was not that bad. You have to put yourself in their shoes, because some of the people today, they are working for these big companies, they are enjoying themselves, is as a result of those people. Because you wouldn't like enjoy working in those companies, enjoying that freedom without the fight of these heroes. Because every time when we talk about our heroes, we're not only talking about those who are famous, who are well known, but we're talking about these people who took it to the streets to say, you know what, we have to fight.
A literal white line separating the crowd from the station gate. At 1:15 p.m. the tension snapped. A police officer was pushed during a scuffle at the gate, and the gate was crushed open by the surge of the crowd. Panic seized the police line. They believed the crowd was storming the station to attack. Without a proper warning, shot into the air, and without an order to fire, according to some witnesses, police opened fire with Sten guns and Lee Enfield rifles. They fired 1,344 rounds of ammunition. The crowd turned and fled, but the shooting continued. Most of the victims were shot in the back as they ran. Many were women and children. The gunfire lasted for roughly 2 minutes, but the devastation was permanent. The final toll was horrific. 69 people were killed, including 8 women and 10 children.
So this is what we need to forget. You cannot forget such a thing. And that is why I'm like, we are cowards to our ancestors, because we think what they did for us was not good enough. That's what we think. I know back then there were many sellouts. But I can say majority of our people were fed up with the system. So we cannot just insult them by saying what they did was wrong, or what the apartheid system was doing to them was not necessarily that bad. It's because most of these people, they've never experienced apartheid system. Apartheid system was very cruel. Some of these people who are promoting the apartheid system, or who want to justify the apartheid system, in other words, you cannot even put them in our heroes' shoes for just a minute, or for 2 minutes, or 1 day. It cannot happen. Because if you can put them in these shoes, then they will feel what apartheid system is. But I hope very soon they will feel how apartheid system was cruel, because now they want to bring it back. It was very cruel. Just imagine. You just shoot just like that, like nobody's business. It was cruel because this was a war. Apartheid system was a war against black people. That is why they didn't have mercy. They did not have mercy. So that is why they used guns to make black people to submit, because they only needed black people as workers. In other words, as slaves. I know the moment you talk like this, even these social media platforms, they don't like it. But this is the truth. You have to understand it like that, so that you can understand that this system was very, very, very cruel. I know ANC government is bad, but there are few good things that it has done. And some of you wouldn't be working for these companies that you are working for. You wouldn't be like the CEOs, the directors of these companies. And this is the truth.
180 others were injured. Among the dead was a child just 13 years old. The police claimed they were in fear for their lives, alleging that the crowd was armed with stones and sticks. However, photographs taken in the aftermath showed that only 3 firearms were recovered from the scene, and forensic evidence confirmed that the vast majority of victims were shot while fleeing. The Sharpville Massacre sent shockwaves around the globe. It marked a definitive end to the era of passive resistance. For the South African government, the response was a clampdown. A state of emergency was declared. Over 18,000 people were detained. The PAC and ANC were banned, forcing their leaders underground or into exile. Sharpville forced the world to look directly at the brutality of apartheid. The UN Security Council passed Resolution 134, condemning the actions of the government. It was a turning point that galvanized the international anti-apartheid movement. Today, March 21st is commemorated as Human Rights Day in South Africa, a solemn reminder that the rights enshrined in the Constitution were paid for in blood on the streets of Sharpville.
You should always love your story, love your history, and know where you come from. The mistake that the government is doing, they keep on celebrating all these days, like Sharpville Massacre, Soweto Uprising, and so forth and so forth. But they are not doing anything to empower those communities, to empower Black people in general. In other words, to empower the society when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to jobs, when it comes to all these things. This is what they're supposed to be doing, to heal the people, because we know that the colonizer cannot apologize. It's in their culture, it's in their blood. So we expect the government to not just celebrate, give justice to the people.